Hey guys, just a real quick intro. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate every single one of you. You already know this, how much I appreciate it. I also want to thank James Newman. I appreciate it so much that he was on here. It was so much fun to do. I really hope you guys enjoy this episode. Gonna keep it short and brief. I really hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know on all the platforms. I love this pod at everything except Twitter. I love this pod one. All right, guys. Have a great day. Enjoy the episode. All right. How things going, man?
Good. It's cool to put a voice to the, well, I won't say face, to the profile picture of the skull.
Yeah, that's not what I look like.
Yeah, things are good. It's been a really good weekend, a nice long weekend off work. Actually, the second in a row. So I go back to work tomorrow for the first time that I've worked a full week in a while, trying to burn up some vacations. It's gonna suck.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually just I just bought some plane tickets to go to Washington to see all my family up there.
Cool. Washington State.
Yes, Washington State.
Cool. And where are you? Where do you live?
I'm in Central California.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Very
Well,
cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm glad I've finally got you on. It was supposed to be you are my second guest. I was going to say you were the planned second guest, a couple months ago, and then it just didn't work out at the time. And I assumed I was going to have at least one more person on before we got back around to you, but it didn't happen. So,
Yeah.
You're still the second guest.
Yeah, I apologize. I certainly didn't want to seem unappreciative. It meant a lot to me that you reached out. It was just, without getting into details, I had a bunch of crap just hit all at once, and like personal issues. And I was like, God, I've got to step away and prioritize the things that matter, marriage and family, and
Oh,
fix
definitely.
that, and then come back to this. And things are good. So I'm hoping to get back into the groove of my writing soon, because that's suffered a little bit, but things are on the right path.
Oh, that's good, man. I'm glad to hear that because, like I said, I didn't want to throw any pressure your way. Just like I said, man, life comes first. But this is just a hobby, and we'll get to it when we can.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I knew it would be a month or two, but I just figured it was best to be honest with you and say, hey, I want to do this, just postpone me a little bit. So
Yeah.
things are good. It's a perfect night for it and everything. I set the time aside to do it.
Right
So
on.
appreciate it.
Yeah, I wasn't entirely sure I was gonna keep today because, of course, it happened to be a work week for me where, I normally work like midday to like midnight or so, but these past 4 days they threw me a 3 a.m. shift, 5 a.m. shift, 3 a.m. shift, 3 a.m. shift.
Right. Yeah, that would probably freak out a lot of people, but I tend to do that a lot. Like right now we've been on an OT freeze, but when we're not on an OT freeze because things are busy, I typically go into work like no later than 4:30.
Oh man.
So yeah, I kind of get it, and I don't mind it as long as you get your sleep, like you said, as long as you get into bed at a decent hour.
Yeah, I mean,
because it's
it
impossible to go to bed late and then do that. You'll just
Yeah.
be a zombie.
exactly. Like, I mean, my only problem is I go to bed, or I am in bed at a good time, but it's gonna be a couple hours before I actually get to sleep, and if I even stay
Yep.
asleep.
Yep, same here, definitely. Especially with the aforementioned just crap popping up, life, messing with you when you lie down and try to sleep, and
Yeah.
just stress.
Of course, when you want to sleep is when your brain wants to go.
Absolutely.
Well, speaking of, you said you're writing stuff for a little bit, but you're getting back into it. You have a new project that just came out, what, a week or two ago?
Yeah, Dog Days of Summer.
Yeah.
co-wrote that with Mark Gunnels, and he's a good buddy who actually very lucky in that a lot of my collaborators, I may never meet them in person. I just become friends with them online. But Mark is sort of local. He lives about an hour, maybe even a little less, south of me, and
wow.
So we've got to hang out several times in the past. And he's a good buddy of mine, and we. I had this idea I took to him, and I really like to collaborate. Have somebody to help with the heavy lifting, and
Yeah.
especially if I'm a fan and a friend anyway. And we really clicked on that one.
That's pretty cool. I always wondered how, if it's difficult or not to co-author. I mean, I've never authored independently, but with somebody else, it seems like I feel like it's either going to be hard or it's going to flow perfectly.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I won't say that I've not had collaborations where I, haven't butted heads with people, but going into it that in the end, it's all going to be for the greater good, so to speak, that you're going to, you may butt heads, but you'll come to an agreement, and you go into it knowing that you can work with this person, that you're a friend first and foremost, and their work ethic, you respect their writing, and you know them well before you jump into it.
Yeah.
I have yet to have an experience that wasn't 100% enjoyable, and I've done quite a few collaborations, I'd say a ton of them over the last year, more than ever.
Yeah, and this isn't your.
I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say this isn't your first published collaboration, right?
Oh no, there's been quite a few. There was I did a novella called The Church of Dead Languages with Jason Brannon.
That's a great title.
Yeah, I was always pretty proud of that one. I did Love Bites and a collection called Death Songs from the Naked Man with Don Gash, who is another local boy. Actually, he's probably my best friend in the world. We've been friends since we were like 15, and he lives like 2 minutes away from me.
Wow.
So he's another exception to the rule of, never meeting face to face with my collaborators. But
okay.
Yeah, quite a few. I've got, as a matter of fact, I've got 2 more collaborations coming out by Halloween. So sort of been my thing the last year or so, working with other folks.
Does that make it easier to get your ideas out or get projects finished? Or
I would probably say that collaborations make it a little easier. At the risk of sounding like you have somebody else carry the workload, you do in a way. You do have somebody carry 50% of it. Like, they bring their own ideas to the table. As a matter of fact, it's been my experience that I may have a cool idea and it fizzles, and I'm like, I have no idea what I want to do with this, but I really like this first 10 pages or whatever that I have written. Hey, would you like to come on board with this? And they bring their own ideas, and a story that may have sat in a drawer somewhere is now, you got a contract and it's being published, 6 months to a year later. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it, and especially working with different writers who I admire, so their voices may be a little bit different, but you always pick somebody who your voice is going to jive with their voice. You want a collaboration where it gels, and you don't automatically know as the reader, okay, he wrote that part. It needs to gel, Yeah,
because I mean, normally I'm not a huge fan of like, oh, I see that somebody wrote it with somebody else, because I feel like sometimes you can tell where the style shifts and whatnot. Yeah. But there's out of the few I've read, it's practically one voice.
Yeah.
Do you guys do the whole like you write a chunk and send it to him and he reads it and adds onto it, or?
Yeah, sorta. Yeah, not necessarily chapter by chapter, but there may be, like, when you sort of outline at the beginning, hey, I would really like to write this scene. Hey, this scene feels like it would be your thing. This feels more like you. And, you kind of trade off, and that may change as you go along. because, you know, if you've got a momentum going, the last thing you want to do is stop and kill the momentum. So you may be like, hey, I went a little further than I'd planned in this. Are you cool with that?
Yeah.
But the way I've always worked is, and luckily I've worked with people who are perfectly okay with this and don't think I'm being a control freak. I tend to, when I get their stuff back, when I get their chunk back, I will take it, and then I don't want to necessarily use the word rewrite it, but I sort of will, adding my own 2 cents to it, so it's truly a collaboration instead of him, you know.
Yeah.
And that way the styles truly gel. You truly wrote that chunk together, and then, you know, I expect them to do the same to my chunk, instead of just, I wrote this, he wrote this, I wrote this, he wrote this. You now take what I wrote and tinker with it, add your 2 cents to it before you go on to the next chunk. And it's worked very well for me.
Yeah, because for me, a good example would be the Talisman by Stephen King and Peter Straub. That was, I think that was the first book I ever read that was co-authored, and I honestly feel like you couldn't tell that felt like a Stephen King novel through and through, except for maybe a couple parts that just seemed to drag on. But even in your head, you're like, well, this is Stephen King. He's kind of long-winded anyway, so this could just be him.
Well, you're never going to believe this, and you're probably going to kick me off the podcast and say never come back. But I have never been able to finish The Talisman.
Oh,
man. I started trying to read it for the third or fourth time in the last, 20 years or so, about 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I got like maybe 70 or 80 pages in, and just for some reason it has never hooked me. And I hate to say that because, I love Stephen King, haven't read a lot of Peter Straub, but, that's my admission. That's my confession for that. I've never been able to finish The Talisman.
It seems like most people either love it, hate it,
mm-hmm.
or, like you said, just couldn't get into it. And I did that read along in July. It was last month, and luckily, I can't remember how many people there was. There was like 15 of them, and I'd say a good 13 of them said, this is now in my top 5 King of all time, and the others said, kind of, it was just okay, a lot of dragging on, but I understand everybody finished, but the majority of everyone was like, new top 5 for me, whereas the others were just like, it was all right.
Yeah.
I had a hard time getting into the sequel. I still haven't finished it. It's because it's a totally different tone. Like if nobody told you that it was a sequel and the character didn't have the same name, you wouldn't think it was a sequel because it's vastly different.
Right, and that's called Black House, right?
Black House, yeah. And as a good example of your Skype picture of Morgan Freeman from Seven, it's if The Talisman is the never-ending story, Black House is like Seven.
Wow, yeah, that's a shift.
Yeah, like I said, it kind of messes me for a bit. I think I'm about a third of the way, and it's finally starting to reel me in, because it was not the first 100 pages is, I don't know if it's Peter Straub or what, but it's almost like you're reading a movie script in a sense, because it'll say the writing is seriously like, and then we fly down the street and swoop down to visit these people, and this is what they're doing, and then it kind of goes into a little bit of conversation, then it goes, and then we fly back out and down the street to this person, and it's like, what the hell are we doing?
Weird.
Yeah, it's a little weird to get into, but
yeah,
I got really into the Castle Rock TV series, so I started reading the Castle Rock books, which I'm about a third of the way through the Dead Zone right now, and I'm really loving the Dead Zone. I've never read it before.
That's among my top 5. There are several King novels at the beginning of the 80s there that are not often cited as favorites.
Mm-hmm.
That are like, even I have even heard people say that he was on coke when he wrote them, and hence they suffered for it. But God, my favorite King books are that stretch right at the very late 70s, early 80s. The Shining, which obviously is not usually, that usually is cited as a fave. But
Yeah.
then the ones that Cujo, Christine, and the Dead Zone, I absolutely adore.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't read the Dead Zone, but I'm about a third of the way loving it. I haven't read Cujo, and I got all the way to the final part of Christine and then put it down just because I probably put it down at the very wrong spot because I had maybe, I don't know, 80 to 100 pages left, and I was just like, all right, something happened here, you know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure that's when it was going to kick into high gear, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I need to get back to it. Are you watching the Castle Rock TV series?
That is that on Hulu?
Hulu, yeah.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I don't have that, but I will eventually.
I was going to say, look up when the last episode airs, and when it does, just sign up for a week trial and just binge that thing. It is, I feel like it's the show like Stephen King fans have been waiting for in terms of how good it is, how good the story is, and the fact that he doesn't really have any input towards the story other than just some established characters. It's just fans making up stories in a Stephen King universe, and I feel like it's surpassed everybody's expectations on how good it is.
Oh yeah, I have yet to hear anybody say that it's not great. I will definitely check it out sooner or later.
Yeah, I think we're about halfway through the season right now, something like that.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely check that out. How did you guys get your going back to Dog Days of Summer? How did that come about? Who got the idea to jumpstart that?
Actually, a pretty cool idea that a lot of my readers know this because I've alluded to it on probably Facebook mostly. But Dog Days of Summer was an interesting collaboration because I had the idea, and I basically knew that it was going to be a coming of age werewolf story, but I just had the beginning. And Mark and I were really wanting to collaborate because we were friends, like I said, as well as fans of each other's work. And again, I'm probably telling a story that a lot of people know, but what the heck? 4 years ago, I guess it was, on April 27th, my family and I were biking in the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of Western North Carolina, here where we live. And we had stopped to eat lunch at a picnic table in like a little park area. And after we were finished, to make a long story short, I heard my wife say, "Oh my God," I heard wood cracking and looked up in time to see a massive, dead branch falling from a tree. My family scattered. I didn't get out of the way in time, and the branch took me out, and I was put out of commission. Yeah, I'm assuming since we really only know each other from Instagram, you didn't know this, right?
No, I did not.
Okay, yeah. And so the branch took me out. It put me out of work for 6 months. I broke several vertebrae in my back. My left elbow was completely shattered and had to be rebuilt. My now 8-year-old says that Daddy is a Terminator because I have a metal elbow, and tore ligaments and stuff in my right knee. So it messed me up pretty bad. When it first happened, I remember just blacking out. Don't remember the moment that it hit me. Screaming, wondering if I was paralyzed, asking where my family was. It was literally the worst moment and subsequent summer of my life. But what's interesting about it though, is when I was laid out of work for 6 months, doing nothing but, having my wife, God bless her, wait on me hand and foot and bring me pain pills. It was actually a pretty productive summer because just so happened that since I was out of work at my day job, I think right before the accident, I had sent to Mark what I had, and we ended up collaborating and finishing Dog Days of Summer over that summer. So that project really holds a special place in my heart because it kept my mind. I went through the darkest period of my life where, of self pity. Why did this happen to me? Am I going to lose my job? Am I ever going to be the same? So during the worst time of my life, it kept my mind busy with this collaboration with Mark. And it's like I said in another recent interview, although I had a lot of self-doubt because every time I would send him my chunk of writing, I would worry, God, is this coherent? It's written on pain pills,
Yeah.
but he sort of carried me and made sure that we were okay in that respect. But all joking aside, it was written, during a very dark time in my life and stressful time for my family, and came out of it on top. And finally, here we are. That one had a little bit of a delay compared to the publication of most books, but Cemetery Dance released the limited edition earlier this year. As you mentioned, just a week or two ago, Unnerving published paperback and ebook. So something good came out of it, and here we are.
Yeah, man. And I've seen a handful of people on Instagram that have read it, and they've all said, how much they really loved it. So I definitely need to get to that one pretty soon, especially because I knew it was about a werewolf, but then when I saw people say it was a coming of age story with a werewolf in it, just, I guess we're all nostalgic for coming of age stories, so that instantly I was like, oh damn, I'm getting to this as quick as soon as I can.
Definitely one of my favorite genres, whatever, for sure.
Is your was it your first novel that was a coming of age story, Midnight Rain?
Yep, Midnight Rain. Yep, was like the dark coming of age suspense thing. And I go back and read that one now, and I'll admit, I cringe sometimes at certain passages, but it was my first novel. I mean, you should expect to get better at whatever it is that you do, 14 years later. So no worries. It still holds a very special place in my heart. I'm really proud of Midnight Rain.
You said certain parts make you cringe. Would you, with the good thing about like Kindles and all that nowadays, would you go back and just would you change like the context of the writing of things that make you cringe, or just the style or the way it was written?
Yeah, just the structure of, the way sentences could be a little less clunky, the flow of the writing itself. Actually, that said, I probably had an option to do that if I wanted to, because it was re-released, and it's not available in paperback right now, but it was re-released on Kindle by Cemetery Dance. It's one of their digital books, and so that probably would have given me a chance, but that one came about pretty quickly, so I didn't go back and revise. So I just kind of look at Midnight Rain these days as a, if you really wanted to, you could revise it, but fans seem to like it, so let's just leave it out there as a snapshot of where I was at that time, and hopefully they read the other stuff and can see the improvement,
Yeah, see, that's more or less what Keelan Patrick Burke told me. He's like, as a writer, that you guys are always gonna see things you could have done differently or want to change it now, but in the end, if the readers love it, then just leave it be.
Yeah, and you're your own worst critic too. I tend to mention this in interviews, and people are like, "What's wrong with it?" Well, okay, we'll go with your opinion then. I like that better than my own.
Yeah,
but you could pick apart anything you ever create for the rest of your life. You look at it, even as recently as a year later, and be like, "Oh God, how did I miss that?" But you just gotta put it out there in the world and let it go sooner or later.
Yeah, somebody was talking recently, and they were saying, don't try to, if you have an idea, just put it out there. Don't try to perfect it 100%, because it's more often than not probably going to fall flat. If it's at 85%, just put it out there so it's there, and what to grow from and what to do differently next time and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And I do that though. I mean, everything I write, I do sort of agonize over every sentence, and I am sort of a perfectionist. But there is a certain point when I know, and I try not to let deadlines. I try not to let deadlines influence that. Like, I would rather overshoot a deadline a little bit than put something out that I'm less than 100% satisfied with. So I do tend to agonize and rewrite endlessly, but there does come a point where I know, okay, this is as good as it's possibly going to be now. Hopefully my readers will like it. And so far I seem to have a pretty good track record with that. So you've got it the best you know how to get it at where your talent is at this point in time. So just put it out there.
There you go. And what I really want to get to is what I've been singing my praises about since January, and which is The Wicked.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to have become a I guess you can call it a cult favorite on Instagram, because we all got it in that nocturnal readers box, and it seems to me at least, ever since then, I've been seeing it a lot more, and I don't recall what month we got it. I think it was in 2017 though, wasn't it?
Was it maybe September?
That's something. Okay, because I remember. I don't even remember what, because I'm a big time mood reader. I'll say, oh, okay, I'm going to read this book and this book, but that third book is going to be this. But then it comes time to read that book, and I'm just like, nope, not what I want to read right now. And something triggered in me, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to read that book that everyone's talking about, The Wicked. And it's not a very long book. It's what, like 360 pages, something like that.
Yeah. But it is the thickest one yet of my work.
And actually on that note it's a pretty big paperback, and the text isn't small, but there is a lot of text on the pages, so it may be 340 pages, but you put that in a mass market, that's going to go to like almost 500 pages probably.
It would have probably been too long for most mass market publishers. I believe when I trimmed it down and got it to where I wanted it to be, it sat somewhere around 91,000 words, something like that, which is 10 to 15,000 more than the average mass market novel. Yeah, about 10. So it's thick, but and I've always felt like it was this fat epic novel for some reason. Maybe it's just because of what I set out to do with it, and it's a tribute to those big fat 80s novels. But you're right, it's really, in terms of word count, it's not that much longer. It just is for me, because even my novels, I'm sure they tend to stick around like 65,000 words, which by most mass market publishers' guidelines is 15 to 20,000 too short to ever be eligible to be published by them. I just like a good tight read. Yeah. Most of my novels are on the shorter side. They're long enough to be called novels, but too long to be called novellas. It's the length that I'm comfortable with. So The Wicked, by those standards, is like way longer than most things that I write.
Yeah, and I don't consider myself a slow reader. I don't consider myself a fast reader, but I'm pretty sure I flew through that in about 2.5 to 3 days with, working 40 hours a week too. And that, oh man, like I said, I've sang my praises since I read it in January.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that.
I really dig it. I'm wanting to reread it again for like a spooky October read or something like that. I feel like that's going to become like every year for Halloween you've got your set of movies you watch or shows. Yeah. I think that is probably working its way into being a standard Halloween read for me now.
That is so cool. I can't tell you what the Nocturnal Readers Box did for my career. That, honestly, that little subscription box company did more for me in terms of just in one massive, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm supposed to be a writer and I can't even find the right word. In one massive glut of
Mm-hmm.
readers, it did more for me than anything else so far in my career. And then when people started posting about it on Instagram, oh my God, you've seen the posts.
Oh
It's
yeah,
everywhere.
yeah.
And I couldn't be more grateful for that. It's been killer.
And I don't like taking. I used to take my books to work all the time, but I kind of got tired of putting them in drawers, and people go in that drawer to get something and they don't even care. They just shove it aside, or
Right.
the book winds up getting screwed up. So I started taking my Kindle to work, and it's got a case on it so people can drop stuff on it, and banging around it doesn't matter. So um, anytime I am fully invested in a book that is holding my attention to where if I go to work, I'm like, damn, I can't be on my lunch and not read that book. I instantly get the Kindle edition. So as soon as I started it, read that prologue, I was like, yep, buying the Kindle edition and taking this
That's
to work
awesome.
tomorrow.
That's awesome.
And I have a signed
Well, let
copy,
me.
so that was really cool for me.
That's awesome. Well, make sure. It. Well, I was going to say make sure to remind me, but I won't forget. Just for having me on the podcast and everything. Whatever you don't have, if I have digital editions of them, let me hook you up with some of my other titles.
Ah, sweet.
I would be glad to do that because I appreciate the support and everything.
Yeah, definitely, man. I know. I know. Immediately after I finished it, I went and bought Midnight Rain because I had seen that it. I think one of the descriptions on it was something like, oh, if you love Stand By Me and stuff like that. I was like,
Yeah.
oh shit, sold already.
Yep. Yeah. Love
uh,
that stuff.
what was your inspiration for The Wicked? Because to me, it seems very, like of its time, horror movies from like I want to say like the 80s, and you said 80s paperbacks, and that's totally the feel I got from it.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean it was always from the moment I sat down to write page one. It was always supposed to be a not quite tongue in cheek. I mean it's serious. I wasn't poking fun, but it's almost but not quite tongue in cheek nod to those 80s, evil in a small town novels that were just all over the place, the good and the bad.
Mm-hmm.
With the gaudy covers and the ridiculous plots. And I wanted something just so epic in scale where this whole town is taken over by this evil. But I wanted the evil to be, even though the entire story may have been a nod to those sort of cheesy novels, I wanted the evil itself to be something that I researched a lot, and it was a true god or demon that was worshipped, and I had done my research, and that showed in the finished product. And I wanted it to be genuinely scary, despite the fact that it was this over the top, blood and guts, crazy ass ride. I wanted it to be genuinely scary, and that's one thing that I've gotten from the very first review I ever got for The Wicked. And again, I couldn't be more grateful. Just people have always mentioned just how they really do consider it scary as hell, the old man. And I'm like, well, damn, I guess I nailed it. That's,
Yeah.
to be told this book gave me nightmares. There is no greater compliment that you give a writer, because how many books do you read that really scare you, the written word? There are good ones, but that really scare you. And to have people say that they had nightmares, dude, that's the greatest feeling ever.
I can imagine, like, and there's I love horror novels, but there's some that I'm, after I finish the chapter or even a passage, I'm like, well, that was scary, but then that's it. That's all I get out of it. Whereas,
Yeah.
like I can't tell you the exact part, but I just remember at some point reading, The Wicked, and there was a very tense part going on, and at the time there was a cat that was staying with us for just a little bit, walked by the section of the couch, and all I heard was her collar just jingle just a tiny bit. I heard that jingle, and I like damn near threw the book out of my hand.
You
Just that.
thought it was like Jingle Bells on the Evil Santa. That's what you
Oh
thought.
my God, maybe probably.
Yeah, it
Uh,
was. That one was a lot of fun to write, but it's weird. Well, for one thing, it's been many years ago. Even though people are just now really getting into it, God, I wrote that thing right after I wrote Midnight Rain, so it would have been like 2006 at the latest, and it's just a blur. I can't ever imagine writing something now so long and epic in scope with a family and all the stresses that come with life. It's like, how did I ever do that? I don't know. I did. Sat down and did it, but it's just a blur. I don't remember writing that book.
and
Yeah.
I just love that you said how it is serious, but it's very tongue in cheek. And the thing that's coming to my mind is, without saying too much, the I guess like the epic, third act, the conclusion part.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember kind of chuckling and laughing to myself because it's so. I want to say it was kind of absurd, but at the same time, I was just like, "This is scary as hell." At the same
Oh
time,
yeah. I mean, you totally got it. It's, it is over the top and ridiculous, but when we read horror novels, especially horror novels with that tone and that kind of horror novels, you're agreeing, you're going into an agreement with the writer. I agree to suspend my disbelief. I know that zombies are not walking the earth. I know that there's not a creature that sucks blood. I know that people don't turn into werewolves when the moon is full, but I'm going to suspend my disbelief for the length of time that it takes to read this novel or see this movie. Entertain me. So yeah, you're right. It is absurd. I wanted to mention, you had asked me a few minutes ago, influences on The Wicked,
mm-hmm.
and the comment you made about how it was absurd brought me back to, I forgot to mention that there's a lot of Bentley Little influence in The Wicked.
Okay.
If you've ever read Bentley Little, if you think about the premises that he writes about, they are utterly ridiculous. Like if you told somebody who wasn't a horror fan, oh, I'm reading a book about an evil college. I'm reading a book about an evil Walmart. I'm reading a book about an evil mailman. It's like, that sounds like the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But guess what? Bentley Little, consistently, again and again with every book, makes them terrifying.
I've seen the name, but I've never read anything. But now I think I might
Oh,
have to
man.
jump into one.
Yeah, please read The Store, The Summoning, The Mailman. What's another favorite? The Policy, University. If you read any one of those and you hate it, I will personally buy it back from you. That's how good Bentley Little is. Just so he had a stretch of 5 or 6 novels there around the last decade or so that didn't. He kind of lost me a little bit, but I still consistently read them because I was a fan. But his first 7, 8, 9, and his short story collections are just such a huge influence on me. Maybe not my seminal years, because again, they were over the last, they were through the 2000s. But one of my absolute favorites. I'm reading his new Cemetery Dance collection now, Walking Alone, and it's. I think that's the name of it. I don't think I'm butchering the title. Anyway, it's his newest collection, and I'll just pick it up before bed, read a story here, a story there, and it's like, wow, the things that this man can make creepy. He had a short story once in Cemetery Dance magazine where he made pancakes sinister.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, I'll never look at pancakes the same way again. Who can do that?
Yeah, I'm definitely intrigued to read something by him now. What would you say your favorite is by him?
My absolute favorite, if you held a gun to my head and said you just have to pick one favorite novel, it would probably be The Store.
Okay.
And the cool thing about his books is they're horror novels, but they're also very much social satire. So The Store is basically about an evil Walmart. it's how Walmart comes in and they put the ma and pa stores out of business in the neighborhood, and essentially like a giant brick and mortar vampire leech the life out of the community, out of the small family run businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also more to it than that. There's also nothing grows on the property where they're building the store. Animals are found dead. And then there are the eerie night managers that come in whenever they start hiring employees into this new store. And it's like it becomes a horror story. But at its heart, it's also this social satire that says a lot about places like Walmart. And it's brilliant.
I was going to say, it
brilliant.
Almost sounds like walking through an actual Walmart, too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so good, man. Get that one. Get University, which is basically about an evil college. Yeah, just trying to describe them doesn't do them justice.
Yeah, see, that's, and, like you were saying, the absurd nature of the Wicked and all that, it's, even when I read the description, it almost, I feel like it could have said, you've heard this story before. You know this story of an evil person taking over a town, but what you don't know is what happens in this particular novel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. The description is something we've all heard, but the content inside is definitely wholly original, to me anyway.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And that's sort of the case with any good, I mean, I'm not necessarily claiming to be one myself, but that's the case with any writer who's good at what he or she does. There is nothing original under the sun. Like I'm starting to think about how I'd like to write a vampire novel. My God, what in the world could I do with that? There's nothing original under the sun.
Yeah.
But no pun intended, since I'm talking about vampires.
Yeah.
But you bring to it your own characters that your reader falls in love with, or doesn't. They don't have to be perfect angels that you love. They could be people that you despise and they're flawed, but they're interesting. You want to know more about them, and then you inject the supernatural into it, and you do it in your own way, and you put your own twist on it, and you hope that readers like it.
Yeah, and
coming of age werewolf novel, Dog Days of Summer. Technically, coming of age werewolf novel has been done, and it's been done by the best. Cycle of the Werewolf. But I'm not in competition with King here. If I am, I'll lose. So, you put your own spin on it, and you give it your own voice, and you hope that people like it. And I've been very fortunate for that to have been the case.
Yeah, and I don't consider myself a writer. I would like to try to do something, and the first idea that came to my head was trying to do a vampire novel, and I kind of got to the same thing. Was, okay, well, let's put a spin on it, but how? And it was one of those things where I thought it all in my head, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna tell this to somebody and see what happens. I said it all, and then I was like, damn, I feel like I just described 50 things we've all heard or read before.
Yeah, you actually say it aloud, and then you're, oh shit.
Yeah,
I struggled with that on when I wrote Ugly as Sin.
Mm-hmm.
That one really gave me this psychological hang up when I was writing it. Well, I'm a procrastinator anyway, so any little hang up is an excuse not to write. I'll admit it, and this was just another. But I was in the middle of writing Ugly as Sin. It's about this is very much oversimplifying it, but it's about a disgraced ex-professional wrestler who's trying to reconnect with his adult daughter, who he was never there for her when she was growing up because he was all about his career and being on the road, etc. I'm in the middle of writing that, and Darren Aronofsky's The Wrestler comes out. And it's about a washed-up professional wrestler who's trying to reconnect with his estranged daughter.
Yeah.
And I'm like, shit, how do I compare? But then, I just had to tell myself, there's more to your story than just the subplot of him trying to reconnect. There's so much more.
Yeah.
Well, without getting into it, it's there on the back cover for anybody to read. But I just had to say, you've got to power through this because your story is not his story, and you're
Exactly.
not in competition with this feature-length film that's going to be on thousands of screens. If you're in competition, if you think you're in competition with that, you're going to lose. So just tell your story the best you know how, and don't worry about the rest. Yeah. And I don't think I've ever had anybody, until I brought it up, mention to me, sounds like a ripoff of The Wrestler, man.
Oh, wow.
I don't think it's ever happened. So it was my own hang up, my own reason not to continue and procrastinate.
Yeah, I've had a couple people refer that novel to me, and I haven't got to it yet. But The Wrestler is probably one of my favorite movies. So now I'm really intrigued, and I'm not gonna compare the two, but just if that's how you kind of saw it as
Yeah.
being somewhat similar in description anyway.
Yeah.
Already I'm sold.
Well, I'll send it to you. I'll send you the ebook.
All right. There was that one, and then there was another one I see a lot of people talk about. Odd Man Out.
Yeah.
Is that the title? Okay, I thought I was getting it wrong for a second.
Yeah, that's right. Oddly enough, The Wrestler, I should mention, even though I wanted to hate it because I heard about the similar plot whenever I was writing Ugly as Sin, when it came out, me too, I'm with you. I was like, it's one of my favorites of the last 10 years. And I didn't want it to be. Like, damn it. But, oh, God, Mickey Rourke is just so sad.
Yeah, that's
the line where he tells his daughter he's just an old washed up an old used piece of meat.
Yeah,
is like so sad. Just, oh man, that's such a good movie.
I get I haven't seen like his whole filmography, but for me anyway, I feel like it's safe to say that might be his crowning achievement as far as acting wise.
Oh, I agree.
And Darren Aronofsky is always good in most of what he does. There's been a couple where I'm just like, I don't see that. I don't see that. I know a lot of people hated Mother, which I didn't think was that bad, especially since he kind of described his.
I haven't seen that yet.
He described what it's supposed to represent, and if at least for me personally, if you didn't know what his intentions were of what it was supposed to represent, because it's kind of hard to read the subtext of it, because it's Darren Aronofsky. So,
oh yeah,
if you didn't know that going in, I feel like you're just gonna be like, "What the hell did I just watch? Like, what was this?" But knowing what he was trying to do, it helped me understand it better, and I was just like, "Oh, okay, I like how he executed it." It's one of those movies where I really did like it, but I don't think I'll watch it again. Whereas a lot of people say that about Requiem for a Dream, but I've seen that movie like 50 times already.
That's one of my favorites too. Now you don't watch it to be happy, but it's such a good movie.
I feel like that's one you watch for, I guess, the craft, basically.
Yeah. My wife and I love the lines. Just about any Ellen Burstyn line in it.
Oh God. She was so good.
I'm getting her last name right.
Ellen Burstyn?
Aren't I? Yeah. And just the lines that she has about, like, I like thinking about the television and the red dress and telling Harry, I feel old. And her voice cracks when she said, that's right up there with the a used up piece of meat line in the rest of it. It's like so sad. And God, she should have won that friggin' Oscar that year.
I was
friggin' Erin Brockovich.
Is that who she lost to?
Yep.
I'm not a Julia Roberts fan either, so that really is a little bit of salt in the wound there.
I'm just sort of indifferent to her. I mean, wouldn't matter if I was. That performance might be the thing. Oh, it's just so good. I could go off for an hour about it. It's so tragic. You just want to give her a hug.
Yes. And and she almost reminded you of kind of like either your mom or your grandma. Like, this is
Oh
That's,
yeah,
she just encompassed that so well. It's like you said, just like you just want to go up to her and give her a hug
yeah.
and tell her it's gonna be all right.
And he's sitting there, asking her if she's on uppers and kind of judging her, and it's like, you're a junkie. You have
Yeah,
no right to be scolding your mom. But you see in that moment, he does genuinely care about her, despite the fact that he's stolen from her. He's turned out to be anything she ever wanted him to be. He still loves his mother, and she loves him. It's
yeah.
so sad.
I remember reading a piece of trivia of that. There's one of the scenes where it's like a one take shot of her. She's giving a little monologue. I can't remember exactly which one it is, but it's a little tracking shot, and I guess the camera's moving closer to her, and you see a little bump for about half a second. You just see a tiny little bump. Or no, you either see a bump or the camera starts to stray. I can't remember. Or it might be both, but I guess it's because the camera operator started crying watching her and had to
wow.
he had to move his face away from the camera because his tears were getting into the viewfinder, and they left that shot in the scene.
Wow.
They didn't want to do it again because obviously it was had an effect on people.
Yeah, I think I missed that little tidbit. I thought where you were going with that was where they're sitting at the table and the sunlight is on their faces, and it goes all the way around them until the conversation turns dark, and now their faces are in shadow.
Oh,
It's just brilliant.
yeah. See,
and I didn't even notice it until I think I was listening to the commentary. So that's probably mentioned in the commentary, and I just forgot about it.
yeah, I don't think I've ever noticed that, and I usually look for subtle little things like that.
Yeah, it's like when things turn dark, they've gone all the way around the table, and now it's about their problems, not about their dreams. So good.
Did you happen to see Hereditary?
I did. My oldest and I went to see that in the theater.
What did you think about that?
Overall, to be perfectly honest, I was probably a little disappointed.
Mm.
That said, I don't begrudge anyone who says it was great and scary, because it was damned scary.
Yeah, it was.
I think I got caught up a little bit in the convoluted aspects of it. Like, okay, what exactly is happening here? What was the ultimate goal here of this group? I was trying to figure it out, and it took me out of my enjoyment for it. Like, just trying to, work out what they were doing and why.
Yeah.
And, I'm not a filmmaker, so what the hell do I know? But I would have probably trimmed 20 minutes from it, made it a little bit tighter. But overall, the first third to 2/3, I thought were sublime. I did like it a lot, and I will buy it when it comes out on Blu-ray and give it another chance, because in no way, shape, or form did I dislike it. I wasn't so as apeshit crazy as I thought I would be about it.
Yeah.
But it had some very unnerving moments.
I mean, I will say, I'm with you on the convoluted part. It's another one of those. It's a story, you've heard this 1,000 times, but you know how this. Well, actually, okay, in this case, you don't know what's going to set everything off, because that twist that happens early on, I didn't see that coming. But it's one of those. It's one of those. Where we start, where we end, but how we get there is going to be like nothing you've ever seen, which I feel like that's exactly what this one did. Although I will say, you're right, that last third, 20 25 minutes or so is something we've seen. There was not a whole lot that was new about the final act in it, but how we got there to me was and it almost couldn't be classified as a horror movie, because there was just so much of that family aspect to it, to where you were almost just watching a very hardcore drama that had the most terrible parts of life amplified until you finally got to the supernatural in the last bit. It definitely I think it exceeded my expectations just because I didn't know what to expect. Because they showed you a bit quite a lot in the trailers, but you still weren't sure. Like,
Yeah,
okay, what is this about?
it will definitely be one that I'll buy and can't wait to revisit.
Oh
So,
yeah,
you don't say that about a movie that you didn't like.
yeah,
So,
exactly. Um, did you enjoy the new It?
yeah, yeah, it's that's another one where I tell people that you know, I could, if I look at it as a diehard fan of the novel, I
Mm-hmm.
could pick it apart. And I could be like,
Yeah,
why would they change this is so unnecessary to change. Why did they do it? Is it just typical Hollywood? They've got to change it just to put their own stamp on it. Why? If I could pick it apart. That said, if I don't do that and I look at it as a book, or I'm sorry, as a film that used this massive novel that you could never hope to film 100%, accurately
yeah,
as its inspiration, as like a guidebook, I loved it. I
yes.
walked out of the theater and, couldn't wait to see it again. My whole family loved it. It's kind of cool. My oldest, he just yesterday moved into college for his sophomore year. He is starting to read more, and it's all stuff that I recommend. He literally finished reading the novel 5 minutes before he saw the movie in the
Oh
theater. He
man,
took it. Yeah. So he was like, I got to finish it. I got to finish it before I see the movie, just to say that I finished it before I saw the movie.
yeah,
And he did. And it was just, I don't know, that was kind of neat.
yeah. That had to be magical for him because I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of us, if you're, if I feel like if you're at least in your early to mid 20s now, at some point in your life,
Mhm.
you saw the original miniseries as a child,
Yeah.
and like a lot of us, it probably scarred you. Like I don't like clowns to an extent, and it's
Yeah.
probably because of the miniseries. Even as
Yeah.
enjoyable as Tim Curry is to watch.
Yeah. I never in a million years thought I would hear myself say, and I know some of this is probably that classic, oh, I got a bug up my ass about remakes, jaded old horror fan guy, but which I am that to an extent. But I never thought I would hear myself say that somebody topped Tim Curry.
Hmm.
Sarsgaard was terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what it comes down to for me was just a little character choice where he would drool. That
Yeah.
was that was so creepy.
I remember him saying one thing that he went off script on was when they're in the house on Neibolt Street and he's um he's up in Eddie's face, and when he grabs his shirt and Eddie is obviously crying, and all of a sudden it cuts back to him and he's like mocking his crying
Hmm.
and all that. He said he just did that on the spot. That wasn't planned
Yeah,
because he's saying Pennywise is a monster. He doesn't care about if this child's
yeah,
scared or not, so he's basically just gonna mock him. And
yeah.
that was a nice little touch, I thought.
It was well done. I mean, I don't think it was perfect, but I loved it. I can't wait to see chapter two.
Definitely. And like you said, the changes. I've always said, okay, if you're going to change the source material, then you at least need to have as good of an idea as they had in the book, or a better one, because
Yeah,
otherwise, then people are just going to, or at least fans of the novel are going to hate it. And the changes they did, I felt like, okay, this is for the better. It
yeah,
worked. It was nice and fluid, and my only problem was, which it seems to be everybody else's problem, was relied a little bit too heavy on its jump scares and just not enough of the dread.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I was a little bit bothered. I wish they hadn't just made Beverly the damsel in distress to be saved
Yeah,
by the boys. But in no way, shape, or form did it you know take my enjoyment down for it. I really, really liked it.
yeah, that was definitely one that, because other than the Dark Tower novels, I think it is my favorite King novel. So seeing it
Yeah,
done so well was definitely satisfying, unlike
Yep.
the Dark Tower movie, which was not done so well, at least in a lot of our opinions.
Right. Right.
I know some people were like, it wasn't bad. It was what it was. Don't compare it to the book. And it's like, no, don't compare it to all 8 books, because for whatever reason they decided to throw in everything in 90 minutes.
Right.
Have you
Right.
seen the movie?
That's another series of books I've never even read,
Okay.
so I can't really judge. And I saw one trailer and knew that was a film I would never see. Just full of CGI. I was like, I have no desire to see that.
Yeah, and in retrospect, I think from the trailer, because all you were really seeing was Idris Elba and his gunplay, which they, there is a lot of gunplay in the novel, and I think that's all they were trying to give you, and trying to get Matthew McConaughey to be creepy. But then once you see the execution, you're just like, dear God, this is like a bad B movie.
Yeah.
So hopefully if they do the TV series over at Amazon, they'll learn from past mistakes on that one.
That would have potential for sure.
Yeah, especially since it's supposed to be based off the 4th book, which is all is basically a prequel. It's all backstory.
Wow.
Do you have? Well, I was going to ask if you were working on something right now, but what I really want to know is, are you working on or have plans for another like hardcore balls to the wall horror novel? I guess like The Wicked, not in the same subject, but
not really. I mean, I've always got little ideas brewing in the back of my head. Lately, I don't know. I mean, I've got some stuff coming out. I've got one book coming out soon that could definitely fit that description. Something's coming out for Halloween. As a matter of fact, I was going to tell you, I could go ahead and announce that now on your podcast. I have my co-writer's permission.
All right.
So you could call it an exclusive or whatever.
All right. I will take it.
So, yeah, October 5th is what we're shooting for, but definitely by Halloween is a novel called Scapegoat by myself and Adam Howe. And Scapegoat is, gosh, it's crazy. It's a supernatural horror novel with a dash of comedy. Sort of, we like to call it Judgment Night meets Race with the Devil meets Pumpkinhead meets Seven meets meets The Hills Have Eyes meets WrestleMania.
Oh, shit.
So it's about a group of friends who are they've all gone their separate ways, but they're going for one last hurrah, a road trip to WrestleMania 3 in the late 80s. They run afoul in the backwoods of Kentucky of a deadly cult. But I'll leave it at that, because that doesn't necessarily mean what you think it means. It's not necessarily a satanic cult like these hapless heroes tend to run afoul of in most of these stories. It's not necessarily what you think. It's a blast. We cannot wait for people to read it.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
You'll see that by Halloween.
Is it? Is it going to come out in a physical first and a digital later, or both?
Both. I believe it's probably going to be both at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah, and there will be a limited edition too, but that's one of those things that I can't really announce yet because no contracts are signed. But we'll definitely be doing a nice hardcover. But the paperback and ebook, Adam and I are probably going to do a little bit differently than anything I've done in the past, and give self-publishing a chance on that one. Just have some fun with it, because the whole thing has just been a crazy balls to the wall experiment. So why not do that with the publishing too?
Yeah, definitely.
And I've seen the cover art and everything, and it's crazy. I don't know if you saw that on Instagram. As a matter of fact, our author pick for it. You can go back a week or two.
Let me see.
It's basically a riff on Bill and Ted, but it's Adam and I, and he's in 80s Sex Pistols punk garb, and I look like Angus from AC/DC, and we're doing the air guitar. Yeah.
Okay, I did see that.
It just really captures the vibe of the book. It's. I think people are going to love it, man. I'm so proud of it. I can't wait for people to finally read it. So that one kind of applies, a very long-winded way of answering your question about a big supernatural horror novel.
No, that was
so long to get there.
No, that was perfect because I was already amped up just by just by you saying the title and how this meets this and all that. Just already I was excited by that, but then you described it. Now I'm really excited for it.
Oh yeah, we got some cool stuff planned for it. We've got a lot of it'll just be in the story notes, like movie recommendations, like, recommended viewing and stuff like that. But we've even made like a Spotify playlist for the novel, and it's gonna be some fun stuff.
Yeah, I like how a lot of people are doing that now. They'll either, if they're musicians on their own, they'll make a little score for the novel, or like you said, they'll make a playlist on Spotify, which Nicholas Eames, who's done Kings of the Wild and then the sequel Bloody Rose, he's I can tell he's a huge classic rock fan, because the tagline for the first book was "The boys are back in town." The tagline for the second novel was "Girls just want to have fun," and he's created playlists for both of those, and just it's the second one was filled with, because it's all female centered for the second novel, so it's filled with tons of Cyndi Lauper and things like that, and
that's perfect.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool. That's definitely something I would like to do as well. Like that's something I should say I would do something like that had I had a project like that coming out. Speaking of your Instagram, I forgot all about this. There was another book there called The Special.
Yeah, that's yet another collaboration. Going back to the beginning, we've sort of come full circle with the conversation. Another collaboration. That's actually, I understand that shipping now, the limited, but I haven't seen an official announcement. It's from Thunderstorm Books.
Okay.
And it's probably going to be one of those situations where the print run is so limited that it's probably going to sell out to like their subscribers and stuff. So I'm not really sure, like, if there is going to be official announcement, and if so, I'm going to let the publisher make it. But here's another, it sounds so corny saying this, but here's another exclusive for you. I was given permission by the publisher and my co-writer, Mark Steensland, to announce this. Around the same time as Scapegoat, in October, just in time for Halloween, the special's coming out from Bloodshot Books. Mm-hmm. Who also did Odd Man Out in paperback and ebook. And the special is it's a novella. It's not a full-length novel, but it's a novella based on an original script from Mark Steensland and I. And Mark is an award-winning filmmaker who's done everything from short films like Dead at 17, based on the comic series. He's done Keelan Patrick Burke's Peekers.
Oh, shit.
Ed Gorman's Ugly File. Been involved in just a ton of cool stuff. And I hitched to that ride because I admire Mark and we're good buddies. And we wrote The Special, which is sort of our... I don't know, I guess you could sort of say it's sort of a Richard Lehman tale. It's an erotic horror story, sort of a morality tale. Very twisted, unlike most of my stuff. Very sexual. Just had a blast with it. And hopefully people will be reading that in the next month or two.
Yeah, I like the cover. It looks very very noir style.
Oh, yeah. That's the limited cover has a nice like Hitchcock Vertigo vibe to it.
Yeah.
And then the paperback and ebook cover, wait till you see that. It's twisted. I don't want to give anything away, but it's sort of, you see the main prop that's at the heart of the special, and it looks like the book is made out of it. I'll just leave it at that, so as to not spoil anything. But I should be making an official announcement on that on Facebook and Instagram within, I would say, as recently as like 2 weeks from now. It's going to be, yeah, it looks so good.
I was gonna say, if that cover already looks good, I can't imagine what the other one looks like.
We're almost going, not quite to this extent, but we're almost going with sort of a Led Zeppelin 4 vibe for the paperback, where I'm not sure we're even going to have a title on it, or it's going to be very minimal. It's going to basically just look like this prop in the story that, again, I don't want to give away yet.
Mm-hmm.
And, just not even a back cover synopsis. You would have that obviously on the order page, like at Amazon and all, but the back will just be like our blurbs, and it's going to be very minimalistic and just different. People are going to dig it. It's really cool.
That's cool, because I feel like nowadays most people are like, I mean, I don't know anything about how publishers themselves work, but I feel like most people are like, nobody really cares about the cover. They just want to know who wrote it and what it is, and basically give them 3/4 of the plot on the back, and they'll buy it. Like, they don't buy it based on the cover, which I feel like a lot of book lovers do. They just like, oh, I like this author and that cover's awesome. I don't even care what it's about. I'm gonna buy it.
Yeah.
So
that's a good thing to have.
Yeah, and I love that you said you want to go minimalistic with it, and if the title is even on there, it's going to be very small.
Right.
So how old were you when you decided or realized that you wanted to write?
Oh, wow. My mom says that I've been scribbling little monster stories since I was old enough to hold a pen and make a coherent sentence. Yeah. 5. I mean, I was reading somewhat at 4. So as far back as I can remember, and it was always monsters. Yeah.
Was she a big reader? Was anyone in your family big readers?
Big readers, not necessarily horror. My dad always did like sci-fi and horror movies. I can remember him sort of turning me on to horror movies. They were always very liberal in the things that they allowed me to watch. They didn't shield me too much from that stuff. And, I teased them today. It's like, because you didn't shield me from that stuff, now look. And they're like so proud, you got a new book out. So I kind of blame them, and they gladly lap it up. It's cool. They've always been very supportive, even if they didn't necessarily read that. And there have been novels, that I come from a Southern Baptist upbringing, so there have been stuff that I wouldn't let them or wouldn't offer to them to read. Like, Mom loved Midnight Rain, Mom loved Animosity, Dad loved Ugly as Sin, but I never gave them The Wicked, just because it's so twisted, and I just know the ones to pick and choose to not give to them.
I was just gonna say, I'm pretty sure you probably didn't give them The Wicked.
Yeah, I left that one on the stack at home.
What were your, I guess, favorites growing up? I mean, I'm gonna assume Stephen King, but
yeah, definitely Stephen King. The very, very young, at a very, very young age, those Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark books were they made who I am today. And my earliest memory is just keeping them constantly checked out of the library, and those orange and black Crestwood monster books.
Oh, okay.
People either know what I'm talking about or they don't. And they're usually going to be like me, in their late 30s or early 40s before they'll know what I'm talking about, because those go back a ways. But there were this series of black and white monster books, and the covers were black and orange. And I kept those things checked out. And probably 75% of the movies that were covered in those books I've never even seen. But you can imagine being a kid loving scary stuff. I still flipping through the pictures, just couldn't get enough of them. And then the Scary Stories Tell in the Dark books, and then Stephen King, the very first adult horror novel novel I ever read, and it's a favorite to this day, is I'm never 100% sure how to pronounce her name, so if I butcher it, I apologize. But the author is Anne Rivers Siddons. I'm sure that's how you pronounce it. I'm just pronouncing it like it reads, but
Yeah.
or like it looks. But Anne Rivers Siddons, The House Next Door. And oh god, it's good. It's basically about a haunted house that's not old. It's like haunted, evil from the moment it's built.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was so different and unique. And the way it reads, I'm surprised I liked it so much back then, because it's very, very dry, and that fits the like blasé, upper middle class, snooty lifestyles of the people in the novel.
Mm-hmm.
But it works because it's dry, and you get that from these characters until the scary stuff starts happening, and then it's this total. I don't know how to explain it. It works for who these people are. So when the evil comes into the story and the supernatural aspect is injected into it, it's 10 times scarier. You know.
Yeah. That's
and what's cool is King cites that one as a favorite.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, okay, I'm in good company, I guess.
Yeah. It's funny.
And I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah.
You know,
it's funny to think of that as like a subgenre, snooty horror.
Yeah. Upper crust horror.
Yeah.
Start a new genre.
That kind of reminds me of a novel I read not too long ago. Have you ever read Slade House?
I have not.
It's by David Mitchell, the same guy that did Cloud Atlas, which I've never read.
Mm-hmm.
It is a haunted house book. It's only 5 chapters long. Each chapter is about between like 30 and 40 pages, I'd say.
Right.
Because it's not a very long book. It's probably a little over 250 pages. So just about 50 pages each chapter. But it starts off in the 70s, I believe. The first chapter is set in the 70s, and it's just a different account of different people encountering that haunted house. So the first chapter set in the 70s and what happens to these people
sounds good to me.
In the haunted house. Yeah, and then the next chapter is the 80s and what happens to this people, and then it goes all the way up to present day and the is it in the 2000s, 2010s? I think it is in the 2010s is where it finally ends, but it's totally got one of those not really abrupt endings, but it sums up, it ends, and you're just like, holy shit, what just happened?
Yeah, I'm gonna get that.
It's really good. It's got a really cool. It came in another Nocturnal Readers box. I think the one they sent us was the Canadian version, because when I looked it up on Amazon, the cover they had was a little different than the one we have, because the one we got was just beautiful cover. It was just mostly all white. I don't even know how to describe it. It was pretty much all white except for 2 little red dots, which they kind of made it look like the eyes on the house. And I think the hardcover is all white as well. I might be wrong. It's been a while since I've looked at it, but yeah, it was actually really good. I was it starts to get to the point where you're like, right as you're starting to lose steam of, it's like, okay, you did all this build up of this person being in the house, and right as it starts to die, it just picks right back up for 10 pages and then done. Next chapter. It's like, holy shit. Yeah, it
sounds cool.
Yeah, it really surprised me how good it was.
Cool.
Well, let's jump into how I like to wrap this up, which is a little I guess basically a game of Desert Island, because all
right, sounds fun.
I'm trying to think of a new, because a lot of the podcasts I listen to, they play games, but they also have the person in front of them to play games. So
yeah,
it's kind of hard to do one when the person isn't in front of you. So the best I can come up with for now, anyway, is Desert Island.
Right.
So go ahead and give me your. We'll do top 3 of each category if you can whittle it down to those. So we'll do your top 3 Desert Island books.
Boy's Life by Robert McCammon. Christine by Stephen King. Oh God. The Children's Hour by Douglas Clegg.
Ooh, I'm surprised you didn't throw in a Bentley Little in there.
Well, you got three, and it's like a lot of ones get left on the boat, I guess.
Yeah, and
Unfortunately.
you might tell me to just to stop recording, delete all this, don't even post it. But I could not finish Boy's Life.
Yeah, we're done, man. This friendship is over.
I got not that it wasn't not that I wasn't compelled by what I was reading. I think I might have got maybe possibly. I know I got at least a quarter of the way, maybe a third of the way. Somebody told me, as always, I stopped reading books probably right when things pick
Yeah.
up and shit starts happening.
Give it another chance sometime.
Yeah, it just. I think it's because I went into it blind. I still don't really know what the story is about per se. So I think that's all it was I was just ready for shit to kick in and it hadn't
Mhm.
yet. So I was just like, all right, well, it's not hitting me now. So maybe like you said, I just need to come back to it, which
Right.
which I really do want to. Like that same thing happened to me with Summer of Night by Dan Simmons, which I don't know if you've read.
I have. It's not a favorite in the coming of age genre like most was. Not at least in like top five. I like it, but it's not, up at the very top of my list.
I know a lot of people love it. A lot of people love Dan Simmons too, and I've started 3 books by him and have got again a third or a quarter of the way through and just can't do it for some reason. I tried Hyperion, couldn't do it. I tried Summer of Night, couldn't do it, and then I tried The Terror and couldn't do it.
I've read his noir novels I like a lot. And then Summer and Night I liked. Like I said, I wouldn't rank them among the favorite, but I liked Summer and Night. And then read one called, I believe it was called Hollow Man, that I liked.
Okay.
And I've tried to read Carrion Comfort 3 times through the years and never could get through it. Even though it's a great idea, I just always end up putting it down.
Yeah, a lot of people give a lot of huge praise to that book, even though it's.
Oh, and Song of Cali.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay,
Song
I've heard of that one.
Yeah, that one, that's a creepy book, but it's not for everybody.
Yeah, people give huge praise to Carrying Comfort, even though it's a very heavy-handed subject and
Yeah,
subject matter. But
yeah,
yeah, I've heard it is a little hard to read in different ways.
yeah.
But I'm gonna try Summer of Night again just because I love coming of age stories, and that one gets such praise. So I need to try it again. And
It's definitely worth a read, yeah.
and if I can't get through it, then I just feel like Dan Simmons probably isn't for me. And it's not that he's not a
Right.
good writer. I feel like he is very very dense with his writing.
It's just your own taste, you know?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I like mine a little more streamlined. Like I have a good flow going, and not that, like I said, not that he
yeah,
doesn't have a good flow. Just like I said, he's very dense. He packs a lot onto just a single page. You know, you can start off with just the description of the wind, but by the end of that one page, you've gone through like 15 different descriptions of 15 different
right.
things, and you're just like, okay, hold on, what were we doing again? All right, so let's go to movies.
Doesn't necessarily have to be horror.
No. Just if you're stranded on a desert island, what 3 movies would you take with you?
All right. Mm, Leon, the professional.
Ooh,
Uh, this is hard. Um, Better Off Dead, and God, I feel like I have to throw a Tarantino in there.
I was gonna say The Wrestler.
That's a good one, no doubt about it. I think I'd have to say Django Unchained.
Oh, that's yeah, that's
Just adore that movie.
I was gonna say while it may not be to me anyway, like I love Quentin Tarantino. I don't know how many times I've seen each movie. And while I don't personally think Django Unchained is his best movie, I feel like it's probably his most entertaining from start to
Right.
finish.
Yep. Yep.
I at the same time I was surprised and not surprised to find out that's his most successful movie ever in terms of box office returns.
Wow. Wow.
Which, like I said, I was like, that should surprise me. But after seeing it in the theater, I'm like, you know what? It's definitely a popcorn crowd pleaser type movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you dig The Hateful Eight?
Believe it or not, I was not crazy about that one. I rewatched it again about 2 weeks ago, and it's the first Tarantino movie where I'm not saying I didn't like it, but it's the first one where I felt myself looking at my watch. I was like, it feels so long to me, and it just didn't hook me like most of his stuff. It's the first one I've never had a desire to own. Let's put it that way. I didn't dislike it, but I don't like it enough to own it.
I can see that because I remember seeing it in the theater, and I remember getting to the point where just before things really kick in for the third act, like just before that happened, I remember looking at my watch and going, "Damn, we still have an hour and some change left," and then everything kicked in, and I was just like, "Oh, okay, here we go."
Like I said, I watched it about 2 weeks ago, again for the first time since I saw it in the theater, and my wife hadn't seen it. And I was like, "Would you have any desire?" And she's like, "Oh, I like that cast, and I'm kind of in the mood for a Western." And I'm like, and she's not a diehard Tarantino fan. She loves Django. She liked Pulp Fiction, but she's not just okay, I've got to see everything Tarantino does type person.
Yeah.
But she's like, "I don't know, it sounds interesting. Let's watch it." And I'm like, "Yeah, I wouldn't mind giving it another chance." And I liked it a little bit more the second time, and she really liked it.
Oh, wow.
But I don't think I'll ever be crazy about it. I just appreciated it a little bit more. But it's so long.
Yeah,
and so dry at times.
I love long movies if it's keeping you entertained. Obviously the story's good, and while this one did, I do agree that he probably could have trimmed some fat, and apparently the version we all see is 15 minutes shorter than the one he took out on tour.
Yeah. Oh, well, actually, I saw that one.
Oh, the long one?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
I saw like what was it called?
The roadshow version, I think.
Yeah, I saw that. We were out of town on vacation, and I happened to see it on Facebook or something, and I'm like, shit, there's a theater in town that's showing. I'm going to go to that. Do you mind? And my wife was like, yeah, I'll drop you off and go, and we'll go shopping. So I went. It was one of those rare instances where I went to see a movie alone. So I did see that version, yeah.
So you saw it in its 70 millimeter glory?
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
Man. Yeah, see, I just saw it in a regular
cool.
old... I just saw it in a basic Regal theater, which, I mean, that's totally fine because he framed it so well to, even if you had to shrink it down, you still got the scope of it. Well, even if you watch it on a TV, man, just the fact that there's a shot of Kurt Russell and Jennifer Jason Leigh standing in the middle of the room, in the middle of the frame, but in yet that shot, you can see the far left wall and you can see the far right wall of that haberdashery, which is just insane. So I can't imagine seeing that on a 70 millimeter screen.
It was cool. Like I said, I didn't dislike it, and it was cool to get to see that. I've never gone to like a road show like that, but it was a cool way to see it.
So you got the intermission overture and all that, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
yep.
That would have been really cool to see. I think since
and like a souvenir book. It was cool.
I think since Kill Bill Volume 1, I think I've consistently gone to every Quentin Tarantino movie, if not since then, if not opening night, then opening weekend.
Yeah, I think we saw Django twice in the theater.
I don't think I did repeat viewings of anything. Surprisingly, I don't think I have, which, like I said, is very surprising. I'm surprised I didn't go back and watch Django again. And it's funny because my grandma's the one that got me into Quentin Tarantino. I saw Pulp Fiction in the theater when I was about 5 years old, which it's not a movie for a 5-year-old to see.
That's cool though.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm glad that I can say, and it's probably my favorite movie of all time. So I'm glad that I can say I actually saw it in
Nice.
the theater, and you know, it's not other than the language and violence. It's not like there's hardcore nudity or anything. I don't think there's any nudity in it. Well, I mean, there's one bad scene involving rape, but you know, at 5 years old, I didn't know what was happening, but I remember when it finally came out on home video. I think my mom rented it because my grandpa hadn't seen it, and I was like so excited. Even at 6 years old, I was like, I want to watch it, and they're looking at me like, "What the hell is wrong with you?"
It's awesome.
Let's do. Okay, now I guess now we're on to. I don't. Would you rather do albums or artists? Music.
Artists. It's
Okay.
probably easier.
All right, we'll make it a little more broad. Okay, yeah, we'll do artists.
Black Sabbath.
Oh, there you go.
AC/DC and Led Zeppelin.
Oh man, you're definitely a metal fan, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, I like everything. I like everything from Fleetwood Mac to Motorhead to B.B. King to 30 Seconds to Mars to Nine Inch Nails to, gosh, Prince. But yeah, I'm primarily a hard rock metal fan.
Yeah, I'm glad I got a little bit of everything from everyone when I would visit my grandparents. My grandpa always consistently had his radio on, you know, the Motown days, and
That's cool.
My mom always listened to Def Leppard, the Rolling Stones, Queen,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Nice.
my brother, who is 6 years older than me, would listen to stuff like LL Cool J and the Beastie Boys. So I got some from everywhere.
That's my era too. Yeah, I loved LL and Beasties.
Yeah, so I'm glad. I mean, I primarily listen to. I guess I could say my favorite genre would be hip hop / rap, but I listen to everything. Lately I've been jamming out to some CCR.
Cool. Yeah.
I love
Rock.
CCR. That gets you through those work days for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is that it? No. We got to do. Oh, no, we did books, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did do books. Okay,
Because you gave the horrifying boys' life confession.
that's right.
No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's pretty hard to narrow down the 3 artists thing. But
Definitely.
I think that would be a lot easier than albums.
Yeah, I mean, I have, you know, like my top 10 albums, but if push came to shove, I'm not sure I could pick and choose from those 10. I'd probably have to pick an entire artist's discography.
Yeah, or cheat and just do greatest hits.
Oh man, definitely.
Which is always kind of lame.
The only problem with that though is if you do somebody like, well, if you do original greatest hits albums, like if you did the original Eagles greatest hits album, that's only like 10 songs.
Yeah.
Totaling out to like 28 minutes. So there's that's not very much content for you to survive on a desert island on.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up then.
That was cool, man.
I am greatly appreciative that you did this, man. It, like I said, I'm trying to grow this. It started out just being me talking about everything that I like from, you know, everything, movies, books, whatever. And I had the idea of, you know, I was like, hey, maybe I'll reach out to somebody on Instagram and see if they'll let me interview them. And now I saw the phenomenal response I got from that. And those are the podcasts I listen to where people are just BSing. Like, I mostly listen to celebrities interviewing other celebrities, but I still like that because they'll even say, you know, this isn't a late night show where it's not scripted, but you know what you're going to talk about in advance. Whereas whereas they go on there and they bullshit for, you know, an hour to 2 hours. And I think eventually that's, if I can have the luxury, that's how I would want this to turn into. Although, you know, as we've seen, it is a little hard because people have lives, things get in the
Yeah.
way and they can't stick to it, which is, like I said, I totally understand. I'm not, I was going to say I'm not Chris Hardwick on his podcast, but that might not be a good description right now.
Now, yeah.
So, yeah, man, like I said, I'm greatly appreciative of it, and I know I'll probably have you back on for as a repeat guest. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate it. Thanks for the enthusiasm for my work and support. And yeah, we'll come back and BS some more. It's fun.
Yeah, man, I can't.
And
wait
obviously you get me talking about books and movies. I'm happy.
Oh yeah, that's like I said. I'm up for whatever. If you want to, for whatever whatever's coming out next. If you want to come on and just talk about that for an hour, I'm totally fine with that. Or like you said, we can just talk about movies, and I'm good.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Definitely, man. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
All right.
All right. Well, you have a great rest of your night, man.